Hello, and welcome to the All Things Narrative podcast, where we explore the relationships between the stories we love and the stories we live. I'm your host, Derek Hatch, and let's get started. All right, we're back at the top of the month. It is September, and wherever you're at, whether you're going back to school or whether you're getting ready for fall and pumpkin spice lattes, this is the place to be. I appreciate you so much for stopping by and joining us for another episode of the All Things Narrative podcast. And specifically, the story of, where we dive in to someone's life story. And if you've been listening to this episode, or you just stopped by as a visitor here today, and we're thinking, I don't really have a story to tell, I'm here to tell you that at All Things Narrative, we believe that everyone has a story to tell. And if you want to learn how to tell your story, I don't care if you're in business or if you're a creative, an artist, whatever it is that you're into, storytelling skills and learning to tell your story can help you immensely. Better making sense of your life, being able to live more intentionally, and even connecting with other people. Because have you just ever listened to someone tell their story and you just like feel that connection with them? You know, and maybe you'll feel that with our guests here today. But if any of those things interest you, then allthingsnarrative.com is where you gotta go. It's in the show notes, and we do workshops, we do one-on-one coaching. If you have a group of people and storytelling can just really help us better connect with one another, or whatever it is, then yes, allthingsnarrative.com is where you got to go. And also check us out on Facebook and Instagram, so that way you can stay up to date with everything we're doing. And if you're an email person, we just started a mailing list called The Weekly Chapter. So if you want to get on the Weekly Chapter and just be immersed in the All Things Narrative space, then go and sign up for that at allthingsnarrative.com. Enough talking about myself. I am here to bring on my guest. You guys, everybody out there, this is going to be good. This is going to be a good time here, because I got the one and only Sheim Francis in the house.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, my guest today, Mr. Sheim Francis.
Yes, sir.
Is a dedicated teacher, spoken word artist, and as we're going to talk about today, a successful local entrepreneur right here in the South Florida area.
Come on now.
So we talk about him starting his own clothing company for his glory.
Yes, sir.
So there's obviously things about you that draw us together.
Right.
You know, the teaching background. Right. Being, you know, we're words people. We love poetry, spoken word.
100%.
And now we're both entrepreneurs.
100%.
You know? So there's a lot that brings us together. Yeah. And so whenever Sheim and I get to talk, it's a good time.
Always.
I was blessed to be on Shem's podcast. So for the record, so if you want to check out his podcast and the great work that he's doing on there, check that out. That's IV for like the Roman numeral.
Right, Roman numeral 4.
The record, which is, man, you're so good with names. So good with names.
Just keep the IV in there, man, and we're good to go. You know, the Lord knows, man. The Lord knows.
Yeah, so how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. You know, definitely blessed, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be on your podcast. I'm not going to lie. I've been kind of waiting for my invite, bro. I've been waiting patiently, just in the corner, like, man, I'm gonna get my invite soon. So I'm glad I'm here, man. I'm glad I'm here to chop it up with you.
I was like, Sheim, I got a list, and it's like a list of 3 years worth of, you know, guests. So it's like I've got like Proverb on there.
Yes,
we know, you know. So I've got a list I'm
shout
working
out to
through.
Prov,
so,
man. Shout out to Prov.
Shout out.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, it's gonna be a good time. We're
excited,
doing
man.
this. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be good for sure, man.
So I guess what maybe a good place to start is just talking about your origin story, if you will.
Okay.
So you've got these passions, you've got these skills,
right?
You've got teaching, poetry, the creative side. You've got the business side.
Yeah.
You've got that podcast, that host, that energy.
Yeah.
I want to kind of know a little bit, like, where did your passions for these, where did they kind of start, you know?
Man. All right. Are we going to childhood? Where we going?
Yeah.
Okay.
However far back we need to go.
We go. All right. So growing up, right, for those, well, no one knows. No one's going to know. I was born in the UK, born and raised in the UK. I came to America when I was around 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. And leaving your place of origin and coming to a new area, that whole belonging, that sense of belonging becomes it's like a huge crisis that you have. Yeah. Right. And I struggled with that crisis. And it manifested in me not having a voice.
Interesting.
So I always found myself struggling to find my voice. And it was always something that I really wanted. I yearned to have a voice, to belong, to have a way to express myself. So I would find myself, honestly, as a young person, just kind of like writing things. No, not full thoughts, but just kind of writing things here and there.
Yeah.
As I got older, those thoughts became more, I would say more fuller. But I think the main thing, what happened for me was, this was in 2011, as a matter of fact. So we're fast forwarding now. We're going through college. We're, still trying to find a voice. Now I'm writing poetry now in college.
Yeah.
You go through heartache, things happen, you start writing. But in 2011, I had a friend of mine, as a matter of fact, see my journal full of poetry. He's like, man, it's time for you to actually start sharing that poetry. I was like, man, I was nervous, still didn't have that voice, still was kind of like, I don't know about doing this, but I did. I went to a show. It was, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the show. It was at the Hookah House, as a matter of fact, on downtown Lake Worth.
Okay.
Hookah House. It's not even a Hookah House anymore. It's something totally different.
Okay.
Shared my first poem, and literally the rest was history, man. Just really kind of getting the response. It was validating, man. That was a key thing. So the first time really sharing my voice, it was validated. And that validation just kind of like sparked all of this creativity, all of this, like, oh my gosh, I can do this. So from 2011 to 2016, like, poetry was my thing. Like, that was my bread and butter. That's everything I did. That's kind of where it was. And then,
hold on. Can we stay there for a few minutes?
Let's stay there, man.
Yeah. So, okay. So you were born in the UK.
Yes.
You moved here.
Yes.
What made you guys move here?
Mother and father split up, man.
Oh, wow.
Mother and father split.
I was like, I think there's a story there.
Yeah, of course. There's definitely a story there, man. So, mom and pops. Matter of fact, mom and pops split before I was born. They split. But it was just bad, It was one of those things where, they were having their arguments. It wasn't a healthy environment, right?
Yeah.
And, my mother just said, you know what? I need to make a future for my kids. And she made a very challenging move to bring us from the UK to here. We came here and we struggled.
So why Florida?
My grandmother was here.
Okay, so you didn't know somebody here.
So we knew. So my grandmother was here. She encouraged my mom at the time to come over. My mother did. We tried to find a new life. Here in Florida, man, it was challenging. One of the things people often ask me, like, what happened to your English accent, right? So so I'm a kid who I go from being like in the rough part of England, coming to a rough part in Florida, in Miami, as Carol City.
Yeah,
they weren't having a black dude with an English accent. They weren't having it, man.
Hey, you got Idris Elba now, right?
Right.
So it's cool now.
I'm like,
it's now cool.
Like the guy, he's the cool guy, but they used to call me, what's his name from Fresh Prince? Jeffrey from Fresh Prince.
Oh, no, not Jeffrey.
So they used to call me Jeffrey from Fresh Prince, and I'm like, no. So I was intentional.
Oh, that's hard.
I was intentional about like getting rid of that accent, bro, which I regret now. I'm like, man, I should have kept that.
You should have kept. I mean, you have a great voice,
right. But
how do you get rid of an accent?
Man, you just emulate the American accent.
Really?
It was like literally. It's so funny. I look back at it now. I used to watch episodes of Jerry Springer.
Yeah,
as a kid.
Oh my gosh.
It just like
that was your
because in England that's all we knew. We knew Jerry Springer. And then we knew the cowboy movies, man. That for us, that was America.
That was America.
That was
Wow,
America,
wow.
you know. So
Yeah.
I tried to emulate that accent to the best of my ability, man, and it just became a natural one for me.
How long did it take until you woke up in the morning and said good morning, and it went from British good morning to good morning?
I think probably like a few months. Probably
It's not a lot of time,
It's
honestly.
not. But
Wow.
see, because I was young enough to where I could adapt. You know, I was young enough to where and for me, it was such a social contract to have that accent.
So to bring it back to what you said earlier, though, it's interesting because you made a choice to move away from this accent.
Right.
Did you want to give it up?
No. I felt coerced. For me, it was a social contract. It was either keep the accent, have no friends, continue to get made fun of, or get rid of the accent and get your friends.
And was there anything else at that time that you had to let go of? Maybe that you didn't want to, but you did.
I don't think in the sense of, you think about accents or culture, I didn't have to let go of that, but it was more so I had to let go of my right. And this just sounds so weird. This is kind of like therapy in terms of like where I've been. I had to let go of my right to be respected.
Whoa.
Because I wanted to fit in so bad, which ties into why my voice was so muted at a young age.
Right, yep.
Is because
it's all coming full
it's
circle.
all coming full circle. You want to fit in so bad. So that became the pinnacle of my experience as a child, man. So it was like, I got to fit in. Well, to fit in, you got to become whatever they want you to become. You understand what I'm saying? You got to kind of, change your accent. You got to kind of change how you in a sense, command respect. So those things definitely were, a part of the package deal, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So this theme, if we could call this a theme in your life of belonging,
100%,
is very
100%.
important. That you didn't just want to fit in, you wanted to belong. With this theme of belonging, I'm curious, what really inspired you to push forward towards, because it seemed like, you were writing these poems and you were doing these things.
Yeah.
And there was this part of you that was saying, even though I'm in this narrative right now, I don't believe I always will be.
Right.
I see the possibility of a new, better alternative narrative
100%.
out there. What inspired you? What was that sustained you and kept you moving towards that narrative, even when it didn't look like it was even possible?
This is going to be funny how I say it, and forgive if I'm not saying it right. I had a healthy disgust of where I was at.
Okay.
It wasn't like self-hate. It wasn't nothing like that. It was just kind of like, man, when you're in your mind and you're like, there's so much I know I can do.
Yes.
And it's like there's something that's stopping me.
Yes.
I just got tired of being stopped.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? Even if I fail, bro, I was like, I'm going to do it. That first step, that first poem shared, 2011, never forget it.
Yeah.
That was me saying, you know what? I'm choosing this new life.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I'm going even deeper with this, I had a student who at the time was also into poetry and was also sharing poetry.
Yeah.
And seeing him being so young and so bold to share the poetry, I was like, you know what, man? I can do this. So my student inspired me.
Wow. And you had the friend also.
Exactly.
So it sounds like there's people
100%
that were there.
100%.
Yeah. And that's important because when we do have a narrative that we want for our lives, we have to look around and say, who are the people that are supporting me and moving me towards that direction? Which is what we'll talk about with an entrepreneur as well. It's like when you have an idea for something, who are the people that are rallying around you saying, yes, you could do it. And for me, you're one of those people.
Oh, praise God, man. So that's dope. That's dope.
But it sounds like you were teaching at this time.
Yes.
At the time that you were beginning to write and perform these poems. So before we kind of go to the entrepreneur stuff, what got you into teaching?
My dad. I say that with ease.
Yeah.
So So I knew I wanted to be a teacher when in 6th grade, everyone was cheating off of me, man.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Like,
I can relate to that.
I'm like, I must be really good at this math thing because everyone wants my answers, bro. So I knew then that I wanted to teach, but it didn't really, I would say, stick until 2002. I went to see my dad.
Okay.
Right.
Who was still in the UK.
Who was still in the UK.
Okay.
Still in the UK right now. I went to see him, and my dad's a teacher.
Okay.
Math teacher.
Okay.
And to see the love he got from students, his former students, like he was respected in the city, man.
Wow.
To see, like, to be out with him, we'll go to the store. Mr. Francis, man, thank you so much. We'll go, I'm playing soccer with him. He sees one of his students, come out and say hi to him. Like, seeing that respect he got, seeing that impact he had, I'm like, man, I want that.
Dang.
So for me, like, knowing that I was good at math and then seeing the influence my dad had, I was like, there was no doubt about it. I wanted to be a teacher,
So as a teacher, how do you create an environment where a student can truly belong?
It's crazy because I didn't feel belong when I was coming up. My main goal in teaching is to make my students feel belonged.
Yeah.
Listen, and I always say this.
I love it.
I always say this. It's always more than math. It's like kind of like my mantra for for being in the classroom because man, these kids will leave your class. They won't remember the quadratic formula or integrals. They won't remember that stuff, right? But they will remember how they felt in your class, right? So for me, to create that environment of belonging, I think the key thing that I do is I empower my students. Yeah. I always tell them, hey, listen, I know I'm the teacher, but I'm not always right. So if you have an opinion that's different than mine, share your opinion, right?
Wow. Yeah.
If a student is struggling with work, I say, listen, we don't make fun of anyone who's struggling, right? We help them. That's what we do. So what I do is I create an environment where my students know that they're validated, number one, and that their voice has impact not only on the students, but on me too. When my students know that, hey, the words you say to me impact me, they take more ownership of the class. They take more ownership of the content, right? So I think for me, that's one of the main things, man. And making my students feel validated, number one, and then giving them the power to be self-advocates too, man. Yeah. So we have so much fun in the classroom.
And that, I can't stress enough how important that is, what you just said. Yeah. Because it's okay if I share a quick little story.
Of course.
So when I was in 8th grade, I got to go to the high school to do geometry.
Oh, wow.
And so doing 9th grade math in 8th grade, right? Since they didn't have anyone in the middle school who could do it, we'd go to the high school. So you can imagine what it's like being in 8th grade on a high school campus.
Oh my gosh.
It's very nerve-wracking.
Right.
But there was a group of us. But now we go to this class, right? And it's a class that's mixed with high school students. So there's 9th graders in there, 10th graders in there.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So you're already like super. So you already don't feel like you belong, right? So this teacher, it's really important that they teach with that awareness, right?
Of course.
But let me tell you what happened. Because this might be one of the worst education experiences I ever had.
Oh, man.
We would take a test. And then based on how we scored on the test, they would group us and seat us. But it gets worse than that. Because let's say we did a test on Friday.
Yeah.
Don't know how we did. We come back on Monday morning and he says, all right, everybody line up on the wall. And then this is what he'll do. He'll start from one side of the room because it was like a U shape, right? Going around the room, the tables. So he'd start from the side of the room and he would literally like seat people based on the highest score to the lowest score. And everybody in the class knew what was happening, probably about by the second or third time of this. So literally, you knew a ranking of how everybody did on their test.
Imagine being in that last
seat. I was the last seat several times, or last table several times. And here's the thing, I was used to being good at school. I was A's, B's,
Man.
But this is the only class out of elementary, middle school, and high school that I ever got a C on the report card for.
Right.
Because I failed most of those tests. And it's because you would have to be at your table and you'd have to, like, the whole idea was like, you have to figure it out, And then if I tried to go and ask another student for help, he would rebuke you and tell you to go back. He'd be like, nope, I don't want you over there. So it was literally like, I am not playing with you, man. This
was a class system, a caste system. Sorry, in the
it
class.
Was a caste.
It was a caste in the class.
Yes.
Oh, that's terrible,
and it's
man.
like, how are you supposed to belong?
Oh my God.
How are you supposed to feel like you belong in that situation?
That is tough, man.
So bad teaching.
Oh my gosh. Listen, if you're an educator listening to this, do not ever do that.
Please.
Wow, man.
Yeah. That I've never had a teacher that's done anything like that. And
wow.
And yeah, it sucked. That sucked. So all that to say, what you said about belonging.
Yes.
I can't stress enough.
Yeah.
Create those environments where that.
You have to.
And part of like helping people belong is to not shame people.
100%.
So.
Yeah, man. I think it's key. One thing in the classroom that I do is, I purposely look for those students who are the quiet ones, and I try my best to validate them, try my best to, really just, get to a point where they feel like, wow, I'm valued.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes the quiet ones just fall under the radar.
Right.
But it's like, if you let them feel like they're being valued, man, that they have an impact in the classroom, like it's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing, man.
When you were doing these spoken word, these, I don't know if they were open mics or shows.
Yeah, open mics,
But, you've been to a good open mic where there is that environment and atmosphere of belonging there.
Oh, 100%.
And it's completely different than if you go to an open mic where it's, I don't want to say the pressure, but it is.
You feel the pressure,
and you've got the host that's kind of like okay, moving on,
right? Right.
Yeah, it's like that when I used to do band stuff too. You would know, like there'd be some promoter, some host,
man.
So. So as we're talking about teaching, doing spoken word, coming to America, finding belonging, finding your voice, right? How do all those things lead to you becoming an entrepreneur?
If I can think of one word, man, it's resilience.
Yeah.
In all of those things, right? In developing my voice, in teaching, in coming to America and not feeling like I belonged.
Yeah.
It's just, for entrepreneurship, it is a constant choice to persevere and to be resilient, man.
Yeah.
When you think about business, it's nothing more than knowing how to problem solve. I mean, in whatever area, in whatever your industry is, man, it's just problem solving, right? That's really what it boils down to. And it may manifest in different, aspects, different products, different services, but it's all problem solving. But it's the character behind entrepreneurship that really makes an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
And for me, it's the resilience aspect, man. Just really being at a place where at every juncture there was an opportunity for me to quit, whether it was, trying to fit in, whether it was, the poetry scene where you're not really getting the quote unquote, accolades, or you're not really getting seen, right? Those things can really take a toll. Of course, we don't do it for those things, but it could take a toll on you,
Absolutely.
right? So just being resilient in those areas, man, I think that's really been the biggest one. And also being confident that you have something to say.
Yeah.
Being confident that you can actually contribute to the world, to people, so I think that's a huge one.
So that idea of what you want to say. So when did you know that? What did that journey look like towards realizing you had something to say and realizing, this is how I can say it?
In poetry and entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
So for me in poetry, it was really, man, when after sharing that first poem, people came up to me and was like, yo, that really spoke to me.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, snap. What I'm saying is really what others are feeling.
Yeah.
So knowing there was a connection there, knowing that the words that I was going through, things that I was processing in my mind was actually beneficial to people, that just set me off to know, okay, these words just don't belong tucked away in some journal, right? That someone else is actually going through that. So for me, the poetry kind of became an avenue to not only just express myself, but also to help others heal, right? Help others process. So in the poetry sense, it was more, okay, I'm helping not only just, myself by expressing it, but I'm helping other people, kind of, I would say identify with their own story.
Yeah.
Now entrepreneurship, just being, a faith-based, company that I am, for me, it's, if I'm edifying you through whatever the designs are, like that right there is just, I mean, for me, it's one of the greatest joys when, I got someone who's in New Zealand saying, I got baptized in your shirt.
Wow.
Like, that is like, yo, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So those things are affirmations to me that, God is doing something through me, man. And that's what keeps me going.
So it sounds like during the spoken word time, that's when it sounds like you were starting to not only find your voice, but find out the message
100%
that you wanted to say.
100%.
So, and is it fair to say that the message is for his glory?
Yes.
So can you unpack a little bit of what that is?
So for me, I came to Christ when I was 19 years old, right? Before that, I was heavily into Rastafarianism.
Okay.
Heavily into Rastafarianism. So, the dreadlocks, the full culture. I
still want to see a picture of that.
I gotta show you.
Yeah.
Just fully into that. And for me, the greatest pull, to my faith was a real and authentic relationship, right? So in everything that I do, I want people to see a real and authentic relationship, bro. I'm actually repulsed by any type of air of perfection, any type of it bothers me. It really bothers me because I'm like, man, we know we're imperfect. So why the heck are we trying to put on this facade of perfection, right? So in everything that I do in terms of like, entrepreneurship, in terms of the poetry and its messages, like, how can I show a real struggle, but then show a real God?
Right.
Right. And that's really the theme. Human struggle, perfect God, real God, right? And that manifests through the poetry, through the designs. People will see, man, one of our popular designs.
So once you realized you had this message, when did you realize that clothing was going to be the avenue of bringing that message,
I never wanted to do clothing. I wish I could say it, or put on a big speaker, put an effect on that. I never wanted to do clothing, bro. It wasn't even in my horizons.
Yeah.
So I was literally asked to share a spoken word at one of my friends' churches, right? So I go there, share the spoken word piece, and I felt, okay, my job is done. Like, poetry is my thing. That's it.
Right.
And then the pastor who was there was like, Shem, the Lord put on my heart that you were supposed to make shirts with cool sayings on them. I'm like,
what?
I'm like, man, get out of here. Like, I'm not. No, I was very skeptical of those things, man. I'm like, I'm not really with that. Like, whatever. So I sat on that for a good while. Then I had a dream.
Oh, it's the dreams,
bro.
It's where they get you.
I had a dream.
Okay.
That I was the owner of a successful clothing business, and that business name was For His Glory.
Wow.
Kid you not. So I went. This story gets crazier. So I wake up. This dream happened a Friday night.
Okay.
I wake up Saturday morning and I start doodling.
Yeah. Now, were you like into drawing and doodling like before? Or?
No.
Wow.
I can't draw.
Fascinating.
I can't draw. So I'm doodling like logos, For His Glory, for whatever the case may be. That Saturday I had to be at Renee's house.
Oh, okay.
So this Renee's a part of this story. At Renee's, we were doing this thing at the bridge at the time called the Truth Project.
Okay, I remember that.
So I put this in my pocket. I go to the Truth Project to watch the video. The video is talking about creativity, right? Creating for God. And I forget which composer it was. I always forget the name. But the teacher said at the beginning of his composure, I don't know what it's called, when they're writing the music, right?
Yeah, composition.
Composition.
Yeah.
He would always put SDG on top of it.
Oh, that sounds like Bach.
Bach.
Yeah.
There you go. And SDG stands for Soli Deo Gloria.
Right.
Which means for his glory alone.
Yeah, right.
So when he said that, I was like, stop the video. I said, stop the video, Renee.
I can picture that.
And I took out the paper and I said, I had a dream that I had a clothing company called For His Glory Alone. And I showed him the thing, bro. So it was like the pastor said what he said. The dream Friday night, going to the thing Saturday morning. I said, okay.
What did people say when you pulled that out?
Yo, they were like, jaws dropped, yo.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, snap. I was like, all right, God. All right. Cool.
Wow.
So that was the start of For His Glory, bro. Clothing was not on my horizons at all, man. So
you had to learn, because you design your designs on a computer, because you got to get them on the shirt.
Yeah.
So you had to learn.
Oh my god!
To do all
oh
that.
My god!
See, that's like the opposite of a lot of entrepreneur stories where it's like, oh, I'm good at this already.
Right?
How can I make money?
I
off
was
it?
not good at none of it.
Wow.
It was literally, when I say I truly believe, bro, that this brand, this ministry, is a mission from God. I don't say it to be like arrogant or like self-seeking. Like,
no.
I truly. Because I didn't want it.
You didn't want it?
I didn't want it.
Period.
And there are times where I'm like, God, I still don't want this thing, man, because it's so challenging at times, right?
Yeah.
So, having to start from ground zero, making the wackest designs. Bro, the first designs For His Glory were terrible.
Wow.
Terrible. Having to learn how to work a program, work the software, learning how to like source clothing. All of these things.
Yeah, because you had to. Did you have any connections to the clothing?
Zero.
Wow, this just gets better and better.
Zero connections, bro. So I'm ground zero, saying, God, okay, you've told me to do this. I'm being obedient. It's a story of obedience. I'm being obedient. So here it is. I had to learn YouTube. YouTube University was my was my thing. I started off on like terrible platforms and got better platforms and got my own website. So, the story of the brand, man, is really a story of resilience every step of the way.
Wow.
Because I could have quit so many times. Do you have a particular moment that comes to mind where you were like, this could be the end? Year one. A whole year, I sold 15 shirts for a whole year. Think about that. You're posting, you're trying to get your name out. You sell 15 shirts for an entire year? It's like, God, this is a joke.
Yeah.
Like you don't
15 shirts.
15 shirts. First year. And most is coming from my family. Literally, my wife, when I was feeling down, would go and buy a shirt, bro.
Wow.
That's literally like where it was. Started from
15
nothing.
shirts in 1 year. So that's like about a shirt a month.
A shirt a month.
And I'm sure it was very exciting when that did happen.
Man, you hit a little ding, you're like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? It was exciting.
Because were you selling your shirts? Were you going places and selling your shirts, or were you doing it all online, or a mix of both?
It was so my first, the platform I was on, I won't name the platform. Okay. I don't want you to get sued.
Sure.
for what I'm about to say. But the first platform that I was on, they pretty much took care of the entire process, right?
Okay.
I would upload the design, they would pack it, they would ship it, right? So there was really no upfront cost on my end, right? But yeah, I wasn't holding any type of inventory at that point in year one.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So did you just have like a couple of your shirts, like?
Yeah,
so kind of would show people,
right?
Like, hey,
I would literally do a mock-up, you know, like get a blank shirt online, Google it, and just put the design on it. It was terrible. It was bad, man.
Yeah,
I
know some guys who do shirts.
Yeah,
and they talk about how the whole vinyl, process. It's meticulous. Like right. I have a QR code on this shirt.
Right.
I didn't realize how terrible that was to put a QR code on this shirt.
It's hard. So just learning the process, really appreciating the process. But so first year was definitely like, okay, God, like, what is going on here, man? And then being at a place where, when you look at, I would say manufacturing costs, you look at profit loss.
Yeah.
And you're like, gosh, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
So it's
So
like,
you weren't making any money that first year?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, honestly, the brand really didn't start to kick up until COVID, which is the most interesting thing.
Oh, interesting.
That when brands were dying, that's when Forest Glory really started like making a major push.
Now, how long had you had it before COVID started? How many years?
5 years.
So hold on. Let's stop here for a second. So this is 5 years of putting everything into it and getting very little
return.
In return.
Very little return. Like,
wow.
Like, thank God I had a full-time job.
Yeah. And it sounds like your wife was supporting you through that.
Man.
Which we cannot
underestimate. If you're listening, Cherise, thank you for putting up with me during this time, because it was tough, man.
Having that support from family and loved ones is so key when you're starting something.
It is instrumental. It is essential, man. Because to go out on a limb to do things where you're not seeing results is so challenging, bro.
Yeah.
To be at a place where you're like, yo, I know that there's something here, but I'm not seeing the fruit of it right now, and to still keep going, because
I'm sure in those 5 years you had exciting moments and
yes,
victories
100%.
And things where you were like, this is great.
100%.
But it sounds like when COVID hit, something changed.
Something changed.
And what was that?
One design. And even that design had a setback. So it's okay. Let's go there.
Okay.
So there was a design that I had that I was very passionate about. The design said this at first: when everything fell through, God came through.
Yeah.
Which is now one of the best seller. So that design, I sent to the printer. He printed the shirts. I got the shirts back. They were terribly printed.
Was that like on you or on them?
On them.
Okay.
Terribly printed. I said, man, this is not the design I want. It looks bad. Very terrible job.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, we'll do it again. In that moment, I was like, I'm going to tweak the design a little bit. Right?
Okay.
So think about it now. The brand wasn't doing well, and that job had caught, I think, it was probably a $1,000 job. Right? So it's expensive job. Lost all that money.
Wow.
Right? So that was another place like, man, this is over. Like, forget it. Right?
Yeah.
But I kept going. I said, no, this design is important to me. Created that design the way I wanted it to be, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a revamp. That design, went online, and it literally changed the course of the brand. One design. I kid you not.
Wow.
That design to date has netted me over 6 figures. That one design. Dang. So that was the turning point in the entire brand. And it was like, so in 2010, I keep going back and forth. 2010,
no, this is good.
2010, I was in like some network marketing type of like thing, trying to make some money, right?
Sure.
And this guy who was, one of the top guys in the company gave a story about the bamboo tree. And the bamboo tree takes basically 5 years to really grow.
Yeah.
The first 4 years, all you're doing is nurturing the soil. No growth, minimal growth.
Wow.
In the first 4 seasons. It probably grows they say a few centimeters in the first 4 seasons. But in the 5th season, it grows over 91 centimeters in that 5th season.
Wow.
So I've always, and I thank God for sharing that story with me when he did, because it was like, that kept me going. I was like, bamboo tree. I knew that there was no growth for the first 4 years of the brand, right? You go from 2015 to 2019, no growth.
Wow.
And then 2020 comes. And then you go from making, 10 grand a year, then boom, it goes to 50. Then the year after that, 6 figures. This year, way past six figures. And it's like, oh my gosh.
You brought up something that's really key there. So from that 2015 to that 2019 to 2020, that whole period of time, you had stories like the bamboo one that sustained you.
Right.
And you had like the dream that launched you into this.
Yeah.
Was there anything that God or anyone had given you in those years that kept you going?
Honestly, man, God, yes, 100%. You
felt like God was telling you, like, keep going.
I credit God up top. Of course, He was there, and He used people, bro.
Yeah,
He used people, man. People who would, because there was a point in the brand where I wasn't even posting about any clothing anymore. I was dedicated to posting like content about this spirituality. Just
I remember. I remember.
It was like months where you saw no clothing because I wasn't selling. Right. So I was like, you know what? Even though I'm not selling, I'm still going to add value to people, man.
Yeah.
And during those times, to hear people support, hear how things are changing their lives, and hearing how God was, using these messages to actually impact them, man, it was like, okay, I'm going to keep going. Because from the beginning, I didn't want this, right? So for me, it was always a mission of obedience. The passions literally come for the past couple of years with this. I wasn't passionate about for His glory, man. It was kind of like, I'm just kind of being obedient to it.
Yeah, you're doing it.
I'm doing it, right? But the passion now has come, and, goodness gracious, now I can't stop talking about the brand,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a lot has changed.
A lot has changed, man. A lot has changed.
And so from 2020 to we're heading into towards the end of 2022.
Yeah.
It's different.
Oh.
It's got to feel different. I mean, I've been to your space.
Right.
You've got a building.
Right. And talk about stories. I started out in my garage.
Yes, I remember.
Then from my garage, I went to a storage unit, which was a terrible move because I had to leave within 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
Because I didn't know you couldn't work in a storage unit. So one of the workers said, you're not doing the right thing here. Now, I could have just been like, all right, whatever. I'll just, close the door and do my thing. But I want to have integrity. So from there, I go to
there's people who live in storage units.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So from there, I'll go to another unit. And within 6 months, I had to get out of that unit, man, because the brand was just growing. So now being in an 1,100 square foot, warehouse office space, man, it's like, it's so great. And there's still growth taking place, A ton of setbacks.
It's a nice spot.
Oh, man. Thank you, bro. Praise God. It's a lot of setbacks. This month has been a month of setbacks.
So hold on. I don't want to miss that either.
Okay.
So even when you're at this place where the figures are up.
Yeah.
The money's coming in. The brand, I mean, my gosh, your social media.
Praise God.
Like when I went on there, like with the podcast I was on for you, I was like, geez, he's got a lot of people like he's got here,
Praise God.
And when
man.
that teaser went out that you did, I'm like, gosh, I know where I need to go and but
Right.
But yeah, so there's still setbacks.
100%.
Because that's another story. Because a lot of people will have hear these stories about entrepreneurs and be like, I made it.
No.
And then they're kind of like, wow, like that's awesome. And now they, not they don't have any problems. Maybe they have minor problems, but they're still bringing in the money. They still got the followers. They still got everything. So talk to me a little bit about like having setbacks even at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, because you know what, man? You never, at least for my industry, in clothing, you never fully arrive. There's always going to be an issue, right? Humans make the clothing, right? So there's going to be issues. There's going to be setbacks that take place, man. Like even though, sales are on the rise, there are still things I have to deal with on a daily basis. You got customer service. The more sales you make, the more customers you have to deal with. The more returns you have to deal with. The better your customer service has to be. Right, the more sales you make, now you bigger overhead. Right, If one mistake happens, and like I said, it's been, I've had 5 production runs now that have had errors on them.
Oh,
right,
wow.
So it's like, oh man, these restocks now that should have taken place are now losses. So imagine losing like multiple figures in 1 month, and you're like, yo, I'm not used to losing this amount of money. Right, so it's so you have these things.
Do you through your warehouse? So do you ship everything out yourself?
Yeah, everything
now.
We're fulfillment, right?
Okay.
We do fulfillment. We ship, pack, all that stuff.
Okay,
But But dealing with those now, it's like the higher level you go now, the more complex the system becomes.
Yeah.
So like I said, business is all about problem solving. The problems will always be there, but you get better at solving them as time goes, man. So yeah, there's definitely setbacks. If anyone is listening to this and thinking, "Oh gosh, he's arrived," you're wrong. I have not arrived, bro. Yeah. I'm growing, but I have not arrived, and I think that's good for me because when we arrive, when we feel like we've arrived, we start to settle. Our quality starts to go down. We start to stop being lifelong learners.
Right.
So I want to be at a place, even with the brand, that I'm just lifelong learning, trying to, meet the needs of the people who are in the brand.
We see this with a lot of, we don't just see this with companies, but gosh, we see this like in the arts as well. 100%. You have a musician, a singer, songwriter, whoever a band that you really love, and you listen to their new album, and you're kind of like, they're kind of coasting, like they're not really putting all. You could tell,
Right, they kind of learn the business, and you're like, I can do this and get away with it.
So there's this idea that it seems like you're speaking to that when we mentally believe that like we've arrived and we've reached the pinnacle, now I can just kind of coast from there. And you're saying that we need to always be pushing
100%
to be better, to do better.
100%, man. Yeah. Because like I said, right, our stories, right, we're talking about narratives, right? Our stories are supposed to be ongoing.
Yeah.
Right? If we often feel like, for me, the end credits happen when I pass. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, for my story, it will continue to evolve. It will continue to, progress until the Lord takes me, man. And I honestly feel that, when it comes to the brand, I mean, I always tell people this, my real goal, my vision, the crazy dream for the brand is become a media company. Like I want to. We spoke about that.
Let's talk a little more about that. Like, what do you see for His glory in the future? Where are you going?
Yeah. So for me, the t-shirts have always been a hook. To draw people to a honest and authentic walk with God, man. Yeah. I want people to see there's a real God out there, and He helps us, right? In our time of need, He puts us together. He mends us, right? So I know in this age that we're living in, bro, media is running the place.
Yeah.
Right? Podcasts. We're on podcasts right now. We got videos. We have content. Right?
Yeah, did you hear they did the recent study that came out of the social media trends for, I think it was Gen Zers. I mean, it was for everybody. But what do you think where Gen Zers spend most of their time?
Oh, got to be on social.
But where specifically?
Probably TikTok and IG.
No.
Where?
YouTube.
Stop it.
By far. Like, it wasn't even close. Yeah, YouTube.
Which furthers my point.
Yeah.
They're on YouTube more than they're on IG and TikTok?
Yep. According to that study, at least.
Bro, which goes to show that the war for me at least, the war that we're waging, war is strong, but for me, where you get the people, you're not inviting folks to church no more, bro. I'm not saying that to diminish what church is.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is people are consuming videos. They're consuming this content. We got to reach people where they're at. Yeah. So I want people to see a real God at church, of course, but on YouTube, let them see it there. So I want to create that content that people can consume and say, wow, okay, that's a real person. They struggle just like me.
Yeah.
And they still serve God faithfully, right? So I want to engage the culture in a way where they see real people chasing after a real God, man. So that's the crazy goal before His glory,
So Sheim, as we're starting to get ready to wrap up, I got kind of two final questions for you. So the first one is, and by the way, this has been great. Like I hope that people are really blessed by this.
Yeah.
So my first question is, you've mentioned a couple stories.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned the bamboo tree, for example.
Yeah.
What are some other stories that as a creator, entrepreneur, teacher, when it comes to belonging, all these things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
What are some stories that inspire you to keep going no matter what? They could be any type of stories, real stories, fictional stories. They could be anything.
It inspired me to keep going. It's very close to me, man. My wife's story, Sharice's story, man, has been a crazy story, and I'll give a Cliff's Note version from her or her own privacy, right?
Yeah.
But at a young age, man, she lost both of her sisters, right? And then to be at a place where she became a young mother, just if you stop there, those stats, those stats tell you lose someone traumatically. You get pregnant young.
Yep.
The stats are against you.
Right.
Automatically. To see where she's at, man. To see how she has just been so persevering, man. So, I would say just so loving and kind in the midst of all of that.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring to me. So watching her live shows me bet.
Yeah.
If she can go through what she went through and still thrive, man, I know I can.
Wow.
I know there's a God that's working in her. The same God working in her is working in me, bro.
Yeah.
So that for me is huge. Like her story, my wife's story, bro, is inspirational to me throughout, man.
Wow.
And I think there's a collective story for me is just watching people go from nothing to something.
Yeah.
And it's
the rags to riches story.
Rags to riches.
Yeah.
And to hear them always cite that they never gave up. And I know it's cliche, never give up. But seeing it, like hearing stories of I watch Shark Tank a lot.
Yeah, great.
So Kevin O'Leary, where he came from, right? You hear about Damon John, where he came from. Like these stories of people who literally had nothing, right? And then what you see through their stories is these major pivotal points where it's at this pivot, everything changed. At that pivot, everything changed. It's okay, I'm going to work my tail off to my next pivot.
Yeah.
Knowing that everyone's story that I've seen, bro, there's always a pivot.
Yeah.
So it's I know that the Lord is faithful, right? I know that God provides those pivots. So I'm I'm just going to, through the failure, work to my next pivot. I heard someone say this. He said, I'm going to change your mind on the word no. He's like, if I told you that the pathway to your goal requires 25 no's. He's like, every no you hear will now excite you. Because if there's 25 no's, your first no means only 24 left.
Wow.
The second no means only 23 left.
Yeah.
So every single no now kind of boosts that anticipation. It boosts your excitement, right? So when I heard that story, I was like, oh, snap. All these no's are just pathways to your yes.
Yeah.
So all these no's I'm getting right now in the business, all these setbacks, all these failures, they're just pathways to that success, man. So that's what really keeps me going, is knowing that eventually it'll happen.
Yeah.
Right? It may not happen now, but eventually it will, bro. So just keep it pushing, man. Stay faithful.
You're ministering to me right now.
Man,
as I'm
you just gotta stay
sitting
faithful,
here
man.
6 months into being an entrepreneur,
bro.
And just I think what I have to start doing now is I have to just start writing the good, the victories down.
Have to.
Because it could be so discouraging.
Yeah.
And I just have to go, okay.
Yeah.
Remember, something good
man.
did happen this week.
Absolutely, man. The one thing I know I said it was the final question, but for me, when I shifted from a mindset of ownership to stewardship, it changed everything.
Right.
When you're dealing with a business, you're going to have setbacks, right?
Yeah.
For me, my perspective is because God owns this business, right? Whatever happens, part of his sovereignty. I can't talk to that, right? I can't look at God and say, God, hey, listen, why you do that, God?
Yeah.
What I can say is, you're allowing this to happen, Lord. Help me steward this setback in a way that's going to glorify you, right? So for me, that's been the major thing, setbacks and all. How can God be glorified through it? And as long as he's glorified, bro, I'm satisfied, So
that's probably a good place to wrap it. Any final words? Any final thoughts? Anything that you want to say to our listeners out there before we wrap?
I want to encourage you guys to celebrate your stories along the way.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing I'm working on now is learning to celebrate each juncture in my story. Sometimes we want to go to this place, we want to go to this destination that we miss out on celebrating certain milestones that we reach. You know, like when we hit 6 figures, I wasn't even that happy about it because I wanted to keep going. And I'm like, man, I regret that. Like I should have sat in that and enjoyed that, right? And shared that. And so it's enjoy and celebrate the stories along the way, and don't be ashamed of not always having it together in your story. Don't be ashamed of having those kinks in the story, man. Embrace those kinks because they'll come to a place where you can look back and say, yes, I needed that.
Well, as I've said on this podcast before, we love it when we watch other people.
Right.
We love it when we watch other people overcome
it's the
adversity.
best part of the
and all
movies.
That. But when it happens to us,
right, we hate it.
We hate it.
We hate it.
So it's that shift in our thinking,
100%,
you know?
100%,
so that's
man.
good. Shem, you are a dear friend, and every time we get to hang out, it's always so much
good.
fun. Yeah.
And we always ask, why don't we do this more often, man?
Yeah.
You know
like, I'm on your podcast, you're on my podcast.
Right.
We're doing it.
We're doing it, man.
So, Shem, thank you so much for being on here. And listeners out there, I'll include in the show notes some ways you can connect with For His Glory on your website, Shem, and on Instagram and social media as well. Check out For the Record podcast.
Yes.
And yes, connect with this guy, because as you've heard from this episode, God's doing us. God's telling a story.
Come on now.
You know, and if you want to be part of that story,
come on now.
For His glory, story and glory. You gotta love it. Spoken word. There's something in there.
Come on now. Story for His glory, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, maybe that's what we could call this episode. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is good, man. So,
awesome, bro.
And everyone out there, join us next week as we do an episode of Narrative 101, and we talk about this idea of being decentered yet influential.
Ooh.
Yeah. So.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you don't want to miss that one.
Don't.
So come out to that. Thanks for the enthusiasm.
Yeah. Decentered. Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good one because we want to make it all about us sometimes, and even as entrepreneurs, we're tempted to make it all about us. So, yeah. So join us in that. I'm done. Join us next week for another episode of All Things Narrative. This is your friendly narrative practitioner, Derek, and Sheim Francis of For His Glory, signing off, saying thank you and take care.